You are in for a Martin Luther King Jr. birthday celebration treat. A sit-down, intimate conversation between comedian Jonathan Slocum and icon Xernona Clayton. Though a recipient of a multitude of awards, a history-making TV show, a foundation, and street named in her honor in the city of Atlanta, they pale in comparison with her actual experiences and personal encounters with the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Let's join this epic ride down memory lane with Xernona Clayton. Hey, what's happening, everybody? I'm comedian Jonathan Slocum. I have been to Hollywood. I've been to Atlanta, Georgia, but now I'm at the city of Deerfield Beach, Florida, and I'm happy to be here. And we're here today because it's an iconic day. It's a big day because as we're celebrating Dr. King's birthday, I got somebody with us who knows him better than anybody other than his wife. She happens to be beautiful. She's intelligent. She's
Go ahead. Just keep on.
Sexy. Can I say that?
Yeah, young.
Young, and everybody wants to be with her.
Yes.
Not like in an inappropriate way, but Is that right?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to Miss Xernona Clayton.
Thank you so much.
How you feeling today, young lady?
Well, Jonathan, when I found out that you were going to be the one who was going to talk to me, I had misgivings because, you don't want to just say, hey, boy, hey, sweetheart. I want to be a little more professional.
Yes, we are.
But, you and I have a relationship that goes so far back.
Absolutely.
That I'm feeling like I'm at home.
Well, we are actually in your wonderful office space.
Oh, thank you very much.
And we're excited to talk to you about the days that you spent with Dr. King. Your position was his personal assistant, correct?
No, I was hired. I was hired to be the office manager when I'm in Atlanta, but I traveled, and we'll have to get into how I got here. I traveled with Mrs. King, who was doing concert tours. When I'm not traveling, I'm at home in the office, running things in the office. But Dr. King flattered me so much. He would tell everybody, Xernona can do everything. And when people tell you that enough, you think you can do everything. And then people say, what did you do for Dr. King? I said, he said I could do everything, and they gave me everything to do.
And you had to do it all.
So I did it all.
So tell me, how do you think he was selected as the leader of the civil rights movement, in your opinion?
Oh, I think it's because, see, this was in Montgomery. He had just moved there. He was a young man, new in the pastorate of a church, new to everybody. They didn't say this exactly, but the thinking was that he'll give us a new approach, some new thinking. He's just out of college. He just finished. He had been working on his PhD. He hadn't finished that, but he had, northern ideas, Eastern connection, and seemingly a smart guy. And they said, we think that he'd be the best one because everybody can't shoot as a reputation. They don't know it. He just got here. So that was why.
Wow.
He was chosen.
He was chosen
Yes.
by the people.
Exactly.
Awesome. So you've had a lot of experiences interacting with him. Give us just one of your most fond memories of Dr. King.
Well, Dr. King was really, and people really have difficulty believing this, that he was so funny. I mean, humorous. He had a kind of humor that even you would be jealous of. But he would tell a story, and he would give you all the inflections of the speaker, like he said. And this Italian was telling me this. And he'll speak Italian or have an Italian flavor to the story and put you in the setting of the story. So as you listen to him, you feel like you're there listening to the story. He was very creative, a smart guy, I mean, obviously. But his relaxing moments were more enjoyable because you didn't expect this. And anytime we'd bring in new people, which we didn't do often, but some friend we want, people say, oh, how could I get a chance to meet Dr. King? Where you feel like, well, maybe I'll arrange it this time, but I wouldn't do it all the time. But when they'd come in, oh, golly, he's so much fun. That's what the statement everybody would say, gee, they think that he's out seriously battling the war all the time, which of course he was, but he had relaxing moments as well.
That is, I kind of relate to that because I was telling you earlier that Dr. Andrew Young and Jesse Jackson would always give me jokes.
Yeah.
Like I needed their help or something.
Yeah, right.
But so, assuming that you travel with Dr. King when he gave these amazing speeches, is there something that like he had to have before he started the speech? Like I like to have like dark chocolate almonds or something like that, or.
Well, let me clarify one point. I didn't travel with him that much.
Okay.
I traveled with her, his wife. Mrs. King did concert tours, raising funds for the organization. And so I traveled with her all the time. But what put me in their environment all the time is that I was like a member of the family. I was there for everybody's birthday, all the children's birthdays. I was there just Sunday dinner. I was there on a Thursday, like he's got a relaxing moment. And he often told other people, he didn't tell me as much as he told other people, how much he enjoyed my company. And so they would think of reasons to just get together. He'll call me and say, oh, come on over. He and Mrs. King loved to have hot tea before retiring for the evening. And sometimes he would call me and said, come on over and have tea with me and Coretta. And so that gave me another opportunity to spend time with him. So I didn't travel with him, but I spent a lot of time. As a matter of fact, Andrew Young and people think that I probably spent more time with Dr. King than anybody. I'm not sure if that's the case, but when you travel, you have limited time. When you're visiting, you have more time, so that might be the case. I ended up being his confidant, not in any kind of language that fits a job description, but he trusted me. I was known as a person around the office who didn't do a lot of gossiping. And people learned to trust me with their secrets. And in my thinking, now he didn't articulate this to me, but he'd call and ask me, you got a moment? Of course, the moments ended up going into hours. But he would come to see me to tell me something confidential. And I learned to respect that. And of course, I'll die with some of his secrets because I have a strong verve of loyalty. Like if someone says, don't tell this, I'm not going to tell it. And I was known as that kind of personality, that I didn't tell people's secrets. So I ended up with a lot of his innermost secrets because he trusted me to come by. And let me fast forward the story, because even today there's an article, the FBI still recaptures Dr. King's life every year at his birthday time. But the FBI was on his trail all of the time. When he'd come to my house, I'd look out sometimes and see a car. I lived on a quiet street. So a car parked at night, in front of my house would be an unusual occurrence. And I said, I wonder who's out there on my street. And he said, oh, probably the FBI. I said, you said that so casual. I didn't know, I'm from Muskogee, Oklahoma. We didn't have the FBI trailing us. And I said, what's the FBI doing? He said, oh, they're just following me. Well, last year, and they do it every year now, the FBI contacts me and said, I understand he had a lot of women. They refer to it today. And they'd ask me, did he? I said, I'm not one to discuss Dr. King's private life, but why do you ask me? And he said, because you mentioned a lot in our discoveries. We see you appear a lot with him. And we want to know, are you one of his women? A reporter asked me that. And I said, gee, I resent your question, but I'm going to give you an answer. Yes, I am one of his women. I'm one of the women who helped him to try to get rid of the stigma. I'm one of the women who tried to get rid of racism that's killing our society. I'm one of the women who try to get rid of the dragons of prejudice in this country. So in that case, yes.
I love that.
Because that through him.
I love that. Give me an example of one of the many ways that you saw Dr. King would handle like overt racism, like right in his face. How would he handle that?
Well, a white man confronted him one time. He said, you know, Mr. King, they didn't like to call him Dr. King,
Really?
Mr. King, or Reverend, you know, I have now decided I'm going to stop giving your organization money. So Dr. King said, oh, so you're going to not send us any money? Have you sent us any money before? And he said, well, no, I ain't sent any before. He said, well, we're not going to miss you then. He said, you didn't give any before, you ain't going to give none now. We got nothing we're going to miss with your presence. But Dr. King always had the ready answer. But the man always had the fight in him. Fight meaning we've got to get rid of racism. We've got to do it. We've got to dispel it. Wherever it appears, we've got to do something about it. But he said we cannot wipe out white people. We can't do it by ourselves. We need to come together as a populace, men and women who want the dragons of prejudice to disappear. The way to do is for us to join hands, join forces, join and unite our spirit to fight the dragons of prejudice. And so many white people loved him. I mean, white people, everybody didn't hate him. You could tell he was at peace with his fight for equity and justice.
I love that. He would be so instrumental in this day and time, of course.
Oh.
The famous "I Have a Dream" speech. Did he tell you, or do you know what was the inspiration behind that speech?
Yes, but there's a lot circulating about that speech which aren't true.
Tell us the truth.
He delivered that speech once before the world knew it. He made a speech to a businessman's club in Detroit and talked about it then.
Were there white businessmen?
Yeah.
Okay.
And made a big hit and made good pointers, because all of his speeches, had some long-term fervor. Remember what he said. But I was there the night he was preparing for the March on Washington speech. That was an addition. I Have a Dream was an addition. And was Mahalia Jackson, the great gospel singer, who said, tell him about the dream story. Tell him about the dream story. That was not in his speech.
Wow.
He was there the night he wrote the speech for the Washington event. Didn't include that. It was she who said, please tell him about that. So he could hear her because she was sitting near him. And he added it. And of course, that's the part that we remember. That's the portion of the speech that everybody remembers.
That is amazing. See, that's something nobody ever knew that.
Right.
So when he was shot and killed, where were you when that happened?
I was having dinner with the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan, of all people. And I was in a restaurant, and everybody in Atlanta knew my relationship with the Kings. And
Wait,
so
I'm sorry, why were you having a meeting with the Grand Dragon?
I was trying to get him to do right.
Really?
Yeah, and I did.
Wow.
That's an interesting story. Let me give you one little snippet of that. He ended up, our relationship got to the point where he loved me, I loved him. He believed in me, I believed in him. I had hope for him. I don't know if he had hope for himself, but I had hope for him that I could get him. See, he was a member of a Baptist church, and I'm a Baptist. And I said, I can imagine you a Baptist and got the ideas you have. I said, because the Bible, do you all read the same Bible we do? And he said, yes. I said, the Bible says, feed the hungry and clothe the naked. After that, it doesn't say only if they look like you. And that's what you're doing. And I said, and you come every Friday, you got 2 children. You come all week, you're the deacon at the church, and you're a Christian, and you love the Lord. And then Friday, you put on your white robe, dress your wife and your children in the white robes, and you go out to do bodily harm to some people who don't look like you. Now, can you tell me where you could trace that back to your Bible? And that's just an example of the kind of conversations we would have. But the one question everybody asks me is, what do you think happened? What made you change him? Well, I didn't know I was changing him. We just talked all the time. We talked. I thought he talked poppycock, and I was trying to tell him, oh, gee, how can you be a deacon? How can you be active in the church? How can you love God and don't do anything that the Bible talks about? You know, I couldn't understand that. The Grand Dragon, and I must describe that the Ku Klux Klan head, he was the Grand Dragon of the organization. That means he was the titular head of all the Klanners around the KKK. So he was a big man. And I don't know why he liked me, but he did, and he came to see me every day with some story. My talk, and what I didn't know either until later, was that, I mean, he and I would do battle like he was, oh, Miss Clayton, you know, I didn't, Negroes, he used to say Negroes all the time. I tried to tell him how to say it. But I think he knew it would just jog me. The Negroes in the South and the Negroes in the North, and oh, Mr. Craig, come on. But he kept coming back. Oh, we had a wonderful and unusual relationship. But he would go home every night. I found this out later. Now, they don't like any black people, but every night he'd go home and said, you know, Miss Clayton is a fine woman. He said, I really like her. So he would talk wonderfully about me at his house. Let me tell you what the Grand Dragon did. A Saturday, I went shopping, came home, and I said I lived on a quiet street. And when I turned my corner, I saw cars in front of my house, police cars, television, news people. One in the world happened. I thought it'd been burglarized because I lived in the hood. Mm-hmm. And found out that they were waiting for me to come home because Calvin Craig had had a press conference earlier that day and had announced he was coming out of the Klan and credited a black woman with changing his negative attitudes. And of course, I was that black woman. Then I became the story. It was he with whom I was having dinner
with,
when the maitre d' came over. She wrote a note, and the note said, you hear about Dr. King. Well, I just folded it up and really gave no response to it. What I didn't tell you is that I drove him to the airport, go to the Atlanta airport, to go to Memphis. But anyway, I had talked to him that afternoon, and when she said something happened, I've been in his presence. I was in his presence. We were in Los Angeles one night when a man who had had 10 sticks of dynamite and said, the next time Dr. King comes to Los Angeles, I'm going to get him. And we had heard on the news that Dr. King, of course it was in the paper all the time, that Dr. King's in the city. So knowing he was in the city, and the news said that the man now has gotten Dr. King and they've killed him. We think he's dead. We were sitting in the hotel room. We ended up laughing about the story. Oh, we talked about your death over there on the TV. What she didn't know is that I don't know why I thought that nothing could happen to him because I talked to him earlier that day. But she came back a second time and she said, I hate to interrupt, but we are hearing something on the radio. It's not clear, but something has happened. And I thought you should know. So I went to the phone, and I thought I'd better check on it. Went to the telephone and called, and their private lines, all three of them, were busy. And I knew that was unusual. And I said, maybe I'd better go. So I left the dinner. As a matter of fact, he dropped me off. I left my car. He dropped me off at the King's house. As I was driving up to Mrs. King's home, she and the police and the mayor were coming out of the driveway on the way to the airport. And she said, oh my gosh, I've been trying to reach you. She said, I think I've got to go to Memphis. Something has happened to Martin. I don't know what, but would you check on the kids for me? I had a special relationship with the children, and so I guess she thought they'd be okay, although she had a staff to take care of them. But she said, so I'll check with you later, because I don't know what's going on. And she left. In about an hour, I was trying to locate where the children were. The phone rang, and she was at the airport on the way back because she'd gotten the message at this point that he indeed had died. And she wanted to come home and be with her children. And that's how we got the message. And just so many things happened from that point on.
I'm sure that was, quite something to be there in the midst of all of this. So we all have our own thoughts, and our prayers went up to the family at that time. Tell me, in this day and time, fast forward, who today kind of would remind you of Dr. King?
I'm not sure I could identify anybody. Mm-hmm. But what I do say, though, when people say, oh, we should have missed Dr. King. Oh, we wish Dr. King was still here. Oh, and lamenting the fact he's not here. And I said, you know what? I wonder if he went through all of that where we really have been. He didn't hesitate. When he had the opportunity, well, given, he was asked to lead the group. When he was asked to step up and lead this movement, help lead and decide and determine the approaches we'll take to get rid of this awful spike in our country. Suppose he said, oh, then why not you? Why not you? Because Dr. King had kind of passed it around somebody, he wouldn't have done it either. He felt the need to step up, to say, we got a problem. I want to help in the solution to this problem. You've got to have the same verve and vivacity to say, let me help do this. We could pass that baton on to everybody. Me too. Jonathan, you do your part. And he does his part. And everybody in our audience will do his part. Maybe we can solve that problem. But all of us working together with a unified course of action and a heartfelt feeling to let's get rid of it, then we'll do it. But all of us, let's don't pass it on. And I don't need to wait for you, Jonathan. I know there's bigotry. I know there's maltreatment. I know there's prejudice. I know there's segregation. And you know what? I do what I can. And I want to urge everybody. It's not over yet. Our problems are not solved yet. Dr. King is not here to give us any direction, but you know what? He is. Because we can go back and read his words, listen to his manifest, capture his spirit. If you want to, you can. If you don't, you won't. And that's with everything. And so, as I think of this day, his birthday, I wish he were here only because he was my friend and I miss him. I miss the fun side of him. I miss him helping to direct our future. I miss him and his dedication, because he was a man who was really dedicated. He wasn't making news. He didn't care about his picture in the newspaper. Dr. King could care less about whether they wrote it up or not. And I remember how we all were sitting on the edge of our seats when that woman stabbed him in New York with that letter opener. And he nearly died. And he was unconscious, and he tells the story very effectively. He said he could hear the doctors, although he was, in a subconscious kind of state. The doctor said, the knife is very close to his heart. I don't know if we're going to have luck in getting this thing out. When Dr. King came to and got to his senses, the doctor told him the story. He said, you almost died because we couldn't get the knife out carefully. We didn't think. The doctor had said to Dr. King, if you had sneezed, you would have died. The knife was just that close to your heart. He got a letter from a little girl who was 9 years old, said, so as he progressed and got well, she said, I'm sure glad you didn't sneeze. Wonderful story.
Wow.
Sometimes that sneeze can make a difference in our timing. It can also expand our horizons too, because since he didn't sneeze, he did live. And because he lived, then we had another chance, another opportunity to get in there.
Wow, so this has been an amazing conversation with you, Ms. Clayton, to know that you've had that history with Dr. King. What finally would you like to tell us about Dr. King as relates to now? Like if he was around today, do you think he would run for a political office?
No.
No?
If he were here, he would not run for public office, but he'd look around and ask this question, what? Y'all ain't got this problem solved yet? That's what he would say. Well, he would talk like that because he don't say ain't. But he would tell you the story of the singer who concertizes, practicing the notes and the voices and the range because they're trying to get it right. Or the dramatist who reads his lines and rehearses them until he gets the script right. And we go and tell you how people make the preparation and stick with it till they get it right. And here we are. He would see we've been practicing and practicing, trying to get it right, and we ain't got it right yet. And he'll say, you haven't solved that problem yet? Because it was his hope that at some point, man, this is what he said, man would realize that we must come together. We must get rid of the hostility. God created each of us in his own image. Underneath the skin, we're all the same. He would remind us of that and said, you don't have it right yet. Let's get it right.
Let's get it right. And on that note, thank you so much for this time. Hope you enjoyed this conversation with Ms. Clayton. And do yourself a favor and Google her and find out more about her lovely life. And her name is spelled Xernon.
That's right.
Because people always spell it. Thank you so much for your time. And may God continue to bless you and the next 4, 5, 30, 70 years of your life.
That's all?
That's all.
Oh, gee. Well, I want more years than that, though. I'm going to keep on going, keep on going.
I see if I got God on the main
Oh,
line.
yeah.
No, take care of yourself.